Hi there, welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to dive into negotiation styles. We will teach you the different types of negotiation styles, how to identify your own, and how to use this knowledge to your advantage in your upcoming negotiation. First, we'll dive into the 5 main negotiation styles. Let's start. Situations within negotiations are often tense. In these tense circumstances, most procurement managers have a tendency to rely on their habitual way of dealing with conflict. All procurement managers and negotiators should identify their own preferred style. It is also very useful to identify the preferred style of the people on the other side of the table. This will help you to counter them. Studies have shown that negotiation skills are among the most significant variables of career success. While negotiation is an art form to some degree, there are specific techniques that anyone can learn. Understanding these techniques and developing your skills will be a critical component of your career and personal success. Here are 5 styles plotted on 2 axes depending on 1. How important is the concern for ourselves? And 2. How important is the concern for others? The first style I will explain to you is the competitive negotiation style, also known as the disagreeable negotiation style or the distributive negotiation style. The competitive style is probably the easiest one to detect. You're out to win at all costs. It's often described as a win-lose approach, playing hardball. In this approach, one party is looking to get everything they want without giving anything in return that meets the needs of the other party. The competitive negotiation style is frequently described as the disagreeable negotiator. Dealing with a disagreeable negotiator opponent is considered tough and should be avoided if possible. If possible, look for alternative solutions to avoid a disagreeable negotiation. Use this style if you need to act fast, you are 100% sure you're right about the situation, you are dealing with an opponent who will abuse you if you show non-competitive behavior, or if the situation is important and an unpopular decision needs to be taken. And last but not least, if other negotiation styles are not possible. Potential downsides of the competitive negotiation style: fear of admitting ignorance of uncertainty, reduced communication and no opportunity to explore alternative solutions. You'll be surrounded by a yes team because it's tough to disagree with a competitive negotiator in your team. You might damage the relationship with your opponent, and you'll receive little commitment from your opponent, which adds risks to the implementation phase of your deal. Here is a distributive negotiation example. John is a 35-year-old procurement manager who works at a large global retailer in electronics. He is in charge of procuring air conditioners and is negotiating with a small supplier. John's company is responsible for 70% of the total sales of the air conditioning manufacturer. John calls the supplier and starts directly asking what he wants and needs. He is solely driven by his own goal and tends not to listen to the needs and wishes of the supplier. Within the negotiation, he uses his power to negotiate the terms that are good for him and his employer, despite several arguments from the supplier that the terms that John is asking for are not acceptable due to potential risks. John is ignoring these arguments and he closes a deal that is great for him. Minus 15% on invoice pricing without any favors in return to the new deal. And he calls his boss proudly to share the news. Here is what John thinks. Great news, same product for a cheaper price, proud of my savings. But here is what the supplier thinks. We need to decrease our 70% dependency from John directly. Let's start looking for another partner to grow with. What we can learn from this is that the distributive negotiation from John leads to a win for his company on the short term, but in the long term, it puts the relationship and thus the security of a supply in danger. A quick win leads to a possible loss in the long term because not all parties are satisfied with the deal. The second style we want to discuss is the accommodation negotiation style. This style is the opposite of the first one. It's frequently described as a win-lose approach. Others might call it a soft negotiation style. The accommodation negotiation style is an interesting option when the content of the negotiation isn't that important to you, but it is to the other party. You will be able to build credits at little cost, which could help you in future negotiations. This is the key in the accommodation negotiation style. Use this style if you find out you're in the wrong, or if you want to seem like a reasonable person, you are afraid a competitive negotiation style will harm the relationship too much, you want to preserve the relationship with your opponent, or you want to minimize losses. Potential downsides of the accommodation negotiation style: you'll end up frustrated as your own needs aren't met. Your self-esteem will be undermined. Now that we understand what the accommodation negotiation style is, what are the particular strategies that you should take note of? Well, because it's considered a good guy negotiation tactic, you should only use this negotiation style when you want to preserve a good relationship with the other party and your supplier. When you do end up making a compromise, always make sure to deliver it. Nothing is more disastrous than making false promises. When thinking about a good compromise, make sure that it won't be a big loss for your company. Always remember, the aim here is to minimize your losses. In essence, the accommodation negotiation style is only great and effective towards two parties that have a great working relationship with each other. If you feel that the other party is abusing the accommodation negotiation style by asking for ridiculous or underhanded requests, then stop negotiating and simply walk away. Here is an accommodation negotiation example. Jacqueline is given the task of procuring 1,000 new desktop computers for the new workers in her IT company. She calls HP, the company she's doing business with for over 4 years, to find a good deal. She starts the negotiation and HP directly tells Jacqueline that due to shortage of chips, standard delivery times will not be met. The delivery of computers will only be possible in about 8 months, 6 months later versus the initial standard 2 months. Quickly thinking before things get heated, Jacqueline decides not to switch to another supplier to make sure to get faster delivery, but asks HP how they propose to compensate Jacqueline and her company for the late delivery. Without having one argument in negotiation, HP offers Jacqueline a 10% discount on the total order. What we can learn from this is that by giving away a variable that is not important to Jacqueline, time, she maintains a good relationship with her supplier HP and she gets a discount. Only winners, right? The third style I'm introducing is the avoidance negotiation style. This negotiation style comes down to completely ignoring the entire negotiation. Use this style if the issue isn't important to you, you are unable to get what you want anyway, you need time to cool down and regain perspective on the situation. You need more time to gather information on the situation, or if a team member is able to handle the negotiation better than you. Or if the issue is just a small symptom of a bigger, more important issue. Potential downsides of the avoiding negotiation style: decisions will be made on autopilot. Your personal reputation could be damaged. You are unable to give creative input to improve the situation. Avoidance negotiation strategies to apply yourself. The key to using the avoidance negotiation style effectively is by knowing exactly what you're going to negotiate for. If the issue is a major one, and it will certainly affect not just your reputation, but your business as well, then by all means, carry on. However, if the issue is minuscule and is also a smaller issue that is brought about by a separate bigger issue, then use the avoidance negotiation style to save time and effort. Here is an example of the avoidance negotiation style. James wants to buy new printers for his office. He calls the largest printing company in the city and lets them know he needs new printers from a reliable brand. The salesman is trying to force him to buy the printers from a new brand that they are promoting. This new brand is state of the art. It's cheaper and has more vibrant colors. James says, "No thanks. I've been using my current brand for over years now and it works fine for me. Thanks for the information though." The fourth style, compromising negotiation, happens when both parties meet in the middle. Both you and the opponent won't really get what you want, but no one is losing either. It's a classic let's split the difference. Use this style if the issue isn't necessary to be negotiated to the fullest, a temporary agreement is needed to settle a complex situation, a fast solution is needed Because you're running out of time. Potential downsides of the compromising negotiation style. No one will be fully satisfied with the outcome. This could lead to a short-term agreement, which could cost both parties a lot of time. Here is an example of the compromising negotiation style. Arthur Hahn from Germany is a procurement manager for a non-profit organization that plants trees. He asks a local store for help in procuring 200 shovels for an upcoming tree planting activity. Arthur contacts the store. And because it's a non-profit, the organization is relying on donations from its members and does not have very deep pockets. The owner of the store checks his inventory and tells Arthur the exact price for the 200 shovels. Arthur is sad when he realizes that his organization does not have enough money for the purchase. But he also knows that the trees need to be planted. The owner apologizes and suggests to Arthur to ask for more donations to collect the money. Instead of buying shovels, Arthur asks the owner if he is able to give a small discount for customers who are joining the tree planting activity and want to buy a shovel themselves. The owner agrees to the idea and provides all customers that are planning on planting trees with a 40% discount. While it does not solve Arthur's initial task of getting 200 shovels for his non-profit organization, the final outcome is even better for as well Arthur and the store owner. When the final day of planting is there, all 200 persons joining the tree planting activity have been bringing in their own shovels. The fifth and final style we will dive into is the collaboration negotiation style, or the integrative style. It's characterized by the intention of a win-win for both parties. Use this style if you want a long-lasting solution with the other party. The interests of both parties are too important to be compromised. You want to develop and maintain a relationship. Potential downsides of the collaboration negotiation style. It's very time-consuming to come to an agreement. You'll end up spending time on insignificant issues. Your trust could lead to the other party taking advantage of you. Here's an example of the integrative negotiation style. John is a 35-year-old procurement manager who works at a large global retailer of electronics. He is in charge of air conditioners and he is negotiating with a small supplier. John's company is responsible for 70% of the total sales of the air conditioning producer. John calls the supplier and asks how the business has been doing the last quarter. He then shows interest in the wife and the life of the kids and takes time to discuss last night's match. After talking about their personal lives for a couple of minutes, he brings up the reason for his call. I'm looking for 5,000 air conditioners and would love to close a deal that's great for both of us. John is of course looking for a good price, but he understands the main variables to the supplier in this negotiation. And he asks which one of them is important to them today. Turns out the supplier would like to be paid in advance, as they are in a tough cash position. Fair enough, says John. Let's take a 2% discount on our previous deal. But I'll make sure the money is on your account by the end of the week. Deal. Here is what John thinks. Great news. Same product for a cheaper price. I'm proud of my savings. And here is what the supplier thinks. Awesome guy, this John. A 2% discount isn't great, but he definitely listened to my needs. I would definitely do business with him again. Here's the learning. The distributive negotiation from John leads to a long-term relationship and a direct discount on his purchase. And this is it for negotiation styles. Although everybody should fit within the 5 main negotiation styles, there are definitely other factors that influence negotiations. One of the most important ones is culture. If you want to learn more about the impact of culture on negotiations, make sure to check our course and reading materials later in this course. Most successful procurement managers start their negotiations with a collaborative or integrative win-win approach. Negotiations are perceived mostly positive if both sides perceive they are in a win-win situation, both aiming for creating more value within the total deal. No one wants to end a negotiation with the feeling that only the needs of the negotiation counterpart have been satisfied. This will lead to problems down the road. The key to a successful negotiation strategy is to shift all situations towards a win-win. Yes, even if it looks like a win-lose situation. In the end, almost all negotiations have some elements of win-win. Successful negotiations often depend on finding the win-win aspects in any situation. I truly believe you should only shift to a win-lose mode if all other options failed.